Hi guys. One of the most common questions people have is how do you help someone who has a parent who has a substance use disorder or is an alcoholic? And full disclaimer, I am not a counselor, coach, social worker, medical professional, mental health professional. I speak only as a child of an alcoholic and my personal experiences. So, of course, you should talk to a professional as I do not give advice. But I do share my experiences, and since I have been hearing this question quite frequently from people around the world, I offer this. Never underestimate the power of friendship and in being a good listener for someone who has a parent who's an alcoholic or some other loved one with a substance use disorder. The people who helped me most when I was coping with the most difficult periods of my mother's alcoholism did one powerful thing for me. They listened. And when I was a younger teenager, my grandmother on my father's side became more involved in my life. And although we never directly spoke about my mother's alcoholism, she was there. She recognized that she needed to listen to me, to provide encouragement, to support, to be a cheerleader, to just listen. And I always knew that I had my grandmother to call. She was my confidant, and we became extremely close friends. It was more than a grandmother-granddaughter relationship. I really looked up to her, and she is probably one of the primary reasons I didn't go down the sad path that my mother did and didn't get trapped in that cycle of addiction in my family. And on the second day of high school, when I was 14, I met a girl who was sitting across the room from me, and she was laughing at the same corny, ridiculous jokes that our teacher was trying to make, and no one else was laughing. We had the same sense of humor, and from that day on, we became best friends. We did everything together, and I was really blessed because I needed a friend like that. I'd never had a friend like that. We laughed until our stomach muscles burned, and we watched Dawson's Creek together and did teenager things. And I had spent my entire life hiding my mother's alcoholism from the world and covering up and cleaning up the messes, figuratively and literally, that resulted from my mother's drinking. And for 2 years, I also hid this secret from my best friend. And then one night when we were 16, she was talking about her family and some dysfunction in it and some pain that she felt. And I was there to listen and have that reaction that gave her comfort that she was having a normal reaction. And we laughed about our dysfunctional families. And I, for the first time in my life, felt totally comfortable sharing that secret with someone. Up until that point, my father and my sister were really the only ones who had known anything about the true depth of the chaos and dysfunction that was going on in our family as a result of my mother's drinking. And I detailed all of that night, all of the pain and emotional abuse and physical abuse that came from my mother. And as the tears were showering my face, my friend also cried because she was completely shocked because I was so good at painting a picture that everything was okay, or certainly not ever giving any indication that anything so terrible was going on. I told her about how much anxiety I had, how much worry, how much I had tried to save my mom, and the pain over the fact that I couldn't fix her, that I couldn't get her to stop drinking, that I couldn't convince her to get help. And my friend, just in listening and being there, gave me so much relief. It felt like a ton of bricks had been lifted from my shoulders just to tell the secret. And she gave me that reassurance that I felt everything that she would feel if she were in my shoes. There was so much power in that. And having just someone to listen meant so much to me. And so thinking back, 2 years of being with someone every single day, of confiding in so many other aspects of, who you have a crush on, experiencing first dates, doing all these emotional teenager things. We went through that together, and I never felt comfortable enough to tell her the secret. That's the strength of the wall that I had built. And she told me to call her anytime, and I did. And I think she probably had shared with her family about my secret, because they became even more welcoming to me. I had sleepovers at her house. They invited me to dinner with them on family birthdays and things. I went on trips with them. They were very good to me, and they were everything that I needed at that time. We swapped the stories of our dysfunction in our families and took comfort in our angsty, supportive reaction. I felt reassurance that I was normal. It also helped me, that friendship, realize the depth of my mother's illness and how much it was affecting me. And I have one memory when I was 17, I had the flu. I had terrible fever, and I got just instantly lack of energy, and it was an awful flu. And I was up in my bedroom, and I knew that I needed to drink water because I was getting dehydrated, and I was just, getting worried about my fever and everything. And I called down to my mom, and I said, please, Mom, I'm really sick. Can you please come help me? I just really needed a glass of water. Wasn't expecting anything more than that, because I thought if I stood up, I might faint. And I don't remember if she was drunk and in a very angry, drunken state, or if she was in dry alcoholic mom mode, which was often worse, because that meant that my father had taken the keys away from her, car keys away from her, so she couldn't drive to get alcohol, or there had been some fallout from a terrible drunk fest, and my mom was attempting not to drink. Either way, she was in a horrific mood, and she shouted back up the steps, "Don't be a baby." And that was not uncommon, that kind of reaction. But it stuck with me, because I remember calling my friend and telling her how I felt, and she had a normal friend reaction, that she hoped I would feel better, that she would say a prayer, and that she thought that I would be feeling better the next day and that I needed to get a good night's sleep. Simple words, but it gave me so much comfort. I remember after that getting enough strength to crawl down the steps to get a glass of water. Now, when I think of stories like that, and I tell people, the reaction from them, if they haven't experienced alcoholism or anything like that in their families, is to feel anger. Like, what kind of mom is that? But it's important to know, and I remind myself of this often as I've forgiven my mom for much of the impact on me, is that my mother could not be the mother she wanted to be, and that we needed her to be, because she has always been so trapped in addiction, in her substance use disorder. And that's not the mom she truly is inside, but unfortunately, because she has not embraced help, it has crippled her ability to be the mom that we need her to be. So I'm sharing that because simply being there, being the person you can call, can be extremely powerful. While my safety and health and well-being was always negatively affected, I was not abused in the way that many children of alcoholics and others are. And it was very, very meaningful for me to know that if I ever felt that I was in danger, or my sister was in danger, that I had people I could reach out to, and they would help me. But sometimes children of alcoholics won't do this because they're afraid, because of the way that their brains have been programmed, whatever it is, and someone has to be notified. And in these serious cases, you really need to have counselors, professional people help you recognize what you need to do, if anything. Perhaps you being a friend and a listener is exactly what that person needs and all that person needs. But if it is a severe case and you are concerned about that child or person's well-being and safety, then you need to speak with a professional. And again, I am not that. I am simply a child of an alcoholic who's had these experiences. Now, the piece that was missing from the support that I had was education. So no one in my family or my friend's family had any education or knowledge about addiction, the science behind it. They didn't understand the effects of alcoholism on kids and families. And so I never got encouraged or introduced to any of that education. And I'm pretty sure that if I had been growing up in the age of today, of the internet and resources there, if someone had encouraged me to go to Alateen meetings, Al-Anon meetings, if I'd been given books or encouraged to read those books, I think I would have had the skills and the tools to recognize much earlier, and when I say much, like 20 years earlier, that my only job in life is to take care of myself. I would have recognized what I needed to do to make sure that I was safe and healthy and happy. And because I didn't have that education, it took me a really long time to learn that. And my journey to heal from these experiences and create this awesome grown-up life maybe would have started a long time ago.